welcome back to TechBilly83, and this is going to be generator part 4. So in the last video, or I'm sorry, part 4B. So in the last video, we had this thing sort of running. It was running like crap, and I'm pretty sure I have determined the source of that. It was backfiring quite a bit, but this spark plug here was all rusty and corroded pretty badly. So I found a spark plug in a lawnmower and threw it in there, and now it runs pretty good. No more backfiring. But then I got to thinking, after I did some testing with it, tried doing some load tests through the transfer switch, and it just wouldn't hold up to the load. It dipped down to like 190, 180 volts. It's supposed to be 240. So I got to thinking, well, maybe having two different spark plugs is part of the problem. Maybe they're not gapped correctly. I don't know. So I just, bought two brand new ones. So we're going to put them in here. And then the other thing I've got is this inches of water gauge. And this is going to tell us how much fuel we're flowing into the generator, propane-wise. And got this on eBay. It showed up in a couple days. And, I got to say, the one on eBay, it looked like it had liquid in there, to like really make you think it's a quality item. And this one doesn't have any liquid, so I don't know. It got me. All right, so we're going to get our spark plugs changed out here. And then we're going to put together our, we got a whole bunch of fittings and whatnot. We're going to put together a little thing for our gauge, and then, oh, come on, 1/4 inch drive. I don't want to do anything. Actually, I know where there is one. Hang on. And when I said I know where there is one, what I meant was a 3/8 ratchet. So, these are pretty close to each other. The one that was in there, come to find out, they're actually the same. Yeah, they're both RC12YCs. So, the lawnmower spark plug was the right one, apparently. Yeah, so this one was pretty rusted, and it looks like it might have been running really lean, but I don't know. But at any rate, we're going to put brand new spark plugs in this thing to rule that out. Then we're going to put our gauge together and look at the quantity of fuel that's going into it. We're supposed to have between 11 and 13 inches of water column under load. So if it turns out that we don't have enough fuel flowing to the thing, I did get this quote-unquote high-pressure regulator. We'll see if that makes a difference. Otherwise, we're going to have to buy a regulator that's like meant for generators, which I think is what we're going to have to ultimately do. I got a suspicion. That can, it's got like 3/4 inch input and output, and flows more. Yeah, I got hearing protection. So let's turn the gas on, just so you can kind of see that it does in fact chooch to life a lot better than before. Watch it make a liar out of me. Oh, manual. So no backfiring, no any of that crap. So pretty sure this crappy old spark plug is what the issue was. So you can kind of tell that, this is the one that was not functioning. So now we got brand new plugs, and now we got to put together our water column meter. So I'm going to kind of move you real quick so you can get a better view of that, because I know it's super awesome. And just going to throw some fittings together real quick, and then put it in line on the regulator over there. Alright, so here is our new little diagnostic tool, and I just threw together some fittings real quick. That's a hydraulic hose. That's probably not kosher, but whatever. I put a quick coupler on here so that I can remove the gauge in, when it's time to like undo this and move this from thing to thing in the future. And then that way the gauge is like protected from damage, sort of. So now basically what we're going to do is we're going to fire this thing up and see what it shows for inches of water column. Now, according to everything I've read online and the actual owner's manual for when you set one of these up, you're supposed to have, I think, between 11 and 13 inches of water column. So we'll see what we get here. Turn the gas on. What do we get? Nothing. I kind of assumed that we'd get a reading as soon as we turn the gas on. Maybe it's not like a PSI gauge. Okay, so I think we may have determined, excuse me, why it won't hold load while it's running. Because apparently it ain't getting enough damn fuel. So, you know, I went and spent big money, well, not huge money, but on that, quote, high flow regulator thing, that 2-stage job. So, but it obviously ain't flowing enough. So now what we're gonna do, just for giggles, is throw this thing on there and see if it makes a difference. Our Mr. Heater high pressure regulator. Ooh. So if it looks like I'm buying everything at Tractor Supply, probably because I am. There are some places local that sell propane stuff, but it's like you got to be a commercial customer in order to go there. They look at you like you got 3 heads. If you're like, oh, I'm paying cash, they're like, get out. But I think the main issue here is probably just the diameter of these pipes, or I should say hoses and fittings and everything. They're probably just not large enough to flow the volume of fuel required. So basically, we flow enough to make voltage at idle, but once you give it load and give it the business, then it kind of dies. Well, it doesn't kind of die. It actually dies. Like, it shuts down. The transfer switch is like, I don't like what you're doing. Goodbye. And it turns it off. So we got a lot of good turns out of the threads that are actually going right into the regulator. So let me snug this other fitting up real good. Good enough. Oh yeah, we gotta undo the fitting on the tank. Another issue is, and I'm not an expert on this, but this bottle, this propane tank, 20-pound cylinder may not be big enough. In other words, the space, so you got liquid, you got compressed liquid in there, and you've only got like from the top of the liquid to here for it to boil. And that's basically where you get the gas from. The liquid boils. It's refrigerated when it goes into the bottle. That's why it's frosty when they fill them up. But the gas then boils. So this vessel, the bottle, might not be big enough to actually provide enough surface area to boil the volume of gas needed to run that. That's another thing to think about. Is that what's going on here? Or going on here? I don't know. But we're gonna try all these things instead of just being like, we're not gonna have a generator. We're just gonna take power outages. This thing is just a ginormous pain in the ass. But this is what you get when you buy used. Yeah, there's propane at least right to here, so it's acting like the solenoid is not opening in order to deliver. Well, I'm going to finagle with that. I'm not going to waste your guys' time. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I think I have to say that in order for the YouTube gods to, treat me fairly. So it's looking like we've got a fuel delivery issue. I'm probably going to need a bigger regulator, possibly a bigger propane tank. So I'll get that figured out, and we'll take it from there. So next time I see you, we'll probably have yet more junk to play with, and hopefully by then we'll have a functioning system. I had prematurely ended the video. I thought we were done. Alright, so here's the deal. I thought that this wasn't working, and it wasn't. I was giving it voltage, I was getting a little bit of spark. I made a little test lead here out of a piece of wire. It works. There's nothing wrong with that solenoid. So then I was like, duh! Right on this label, it says 1, parentheses, O-N-E, like 1 PSI max. So what was going on here is our high pressure regulator apparently actually is high pressure, and it was putting out more than 1 PSI. The valve couldn't overcome that, or I should say the valve, the solenoid, this electrical doohickey here. Because basically, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this or not, but I'm going to kind of try to angle that. Hopefully you see the plunger going back and forth in there. So we literally gave it too much gas, and it couldn't mechanically overcome the pressure that the gas had generated inside the line going into it. So basically, I'm going to try and dial that thing all the way back. And see if we can get it to fire, and then slowly increment it back up. But I still think at the end of the day here, we need a different kind of regulator at the tank that's, low pressure but high volume, and maybe a bigger tank. I don't know, we'll see. But my janky setup that I have acquired through bits and pieces and, what is available locally ain't working, to say the least. So we're going to have to get the actual, real regulator. They're usually green in color. I found them online. But the only problem is now I got to order it and wait for it to get here. Unless I can find a place local that has them that accepts cash customers. So I'm going to make some phone calls probably tomorrow morning. All right, enough rambling. Let's get this thing put back together and try another test at the very bottom end of that, what that regulator can put out. All right, so we got our I don't know if you can see this or not, but the hose is all coiled up from when I undid this, so hopefully now it's going to go back together. going to try and just get it clocked correctly. Alright, so I've got the regulator turned all the way down. So I got the high pressure beast turned all the way down. We're going to open up the tank. No gassy gas. So now propane. Alright, so we're right at the edge of the adjustment, the diaphragm in there. So now, sorry about that, you know, you work all week at a hospital, you're bound to catch something. Alright, so I think we are giving it gas now, or not. Yeah, I see some vapor coming out. Here's an idea. So let's take our test lead and hook it on here. And see what I'm going to do is just slowly increment the regulator pressure up to a point where this no longer functions. So then we know where it's going to be, where it's no longer able to hold itself open. There it is. All right. So right now, the amount of pressure that's coming out of the tank, the valve is not able to overcome that and open. So I'm going to back it down. And I probably got to pull the regulator gauge off of here to relieve the pressure that's in the line. Yep. Not yet. Let me shut the tank off and just cut to the chase and evacuate this. There we go. Yeah, that was a pretty good puff there. There's some pressure for sure. All right. Gas is back on. Still not able to overcome the pressure. So let's back that down a little. Okay, now I can hear the tank flowing. So I want to try and get this up as high as it'll go before we reach failure. Actually, I wonder if I could just hold this down. All right, so my idea there was I was just going to hold the valve open and then increase the pressure and see if the pressure would actually force the valve to shut. But it didn't. So I guess once it's open, it's like open. Because at that point, the gas is just flowing past it. It doesn't have to flow over the valve and around it, and you know the solenoid doesn't have to overcome the pressure. So that's not a good test, I guess. So let's back that down again. Yep, so we're stuck. We gotta relieve the system. Whoop, I forgot to turn the gas off. So let's just kind of, you know, wave around some happy thoughts so that, you know, when we spark, we don't blow up, right? I think we're good to go. Nope. Still too high, so I'm going to back that down more. Actually, this time I'm going to turn the bottle off. All right, so now I think I found the sweet spot where the valve gets stuck. So we should have maximum flow at this point out of that regulator. Yes. Okay. So I backed down the knob just a hair. So let's turn this thing on with our gauge in place and see what it says we're doing. Where did I put the thingies? The ear things. Things that go in your ear. Okay. Wait, did I forget to turn the bottle on? I turned the bottle off. Dumbass. All right. So maybe that last adjustment I made wasn't valid because the gas was off. And we were using residual pressure in the line. Oh. So we put our little test wire back in there. Oh, that should be working. So what's the deal here? Well, I mean, I could hear gas going. Actually, you know what? No, I didn't open up the system, so there should be no air to purge. This should just go at this point. All right, so basically, I don't think it's going to run on this regulator. This high pressure regulator, I don't think it's going to run on that because I think it's high pressure, low flow, where this is more of a low pressure, higher flow. You know, less pressure but more velocity, or more volume. So just to confirm our hypothesis, let's yank that off, replace it real quick, and fire this thing up and call it a day. You like how the hose, like the fuel hose that's got explosive gas, is like wound right around the battery terminals? I kind of like it. All right, Gear Pro, bottle on, gauge ready. guess now we have conclusive evidence that this Mr. Heater regulator is not meant for this. It probably didn't take a rocket science to figure that out. Also, our what is it? It's SCTSNS, whatever gauge here. You'll see that the needle is actually on the wrong side of the 0. So, you know, what do you expect for $12 or whatever the hell I paid for this? Thank you, China. Thank you. So it's looking like I got to get a different regulator. And probably a better one of these so that I can properly dial in that regulator once it arrives. Hopefully I don't need a bigger bottle, but if I do, then I'm going to have to start scouring Craigslist and Facebook. So I guess that's it. We're at a stopping point right now. But, you know, we determined that we had a bad spark plug, and that was causing all the backfiring, the crappy running and everything. The starter solenoid was bad, and that's why, you know, in a couple previous videos it didn't want to kick over and you had to like tap on the solenoid with the wrench. We determined that the Mr. Heater regulator is no good. I mean, it works, but it ain't good for this this purpose. That regulator, that 2-stage regulator there, it works, but it doesn't flow enough to make this thing run at full power. So that's kind of where we're at now. It runs, it makes electricity, everything works, but it doesn't, it can't self-govern enough under load because it is starved for fuel. And we determined that in the 30 seconds worth of time that this gauge lasted, we determined that we weren't flowing enough fuel. That being said, there is another way to get this thing up and running without the gauge. We get our proper regulator and proper bottle if necessary, and then we do a transfer to emergency power. And when this thing just starts, you know, crapping itself, we just turn the regulator and feed it more fuel until we get steady, consistent voltage under the appropriate load. Appropriate meaning all the things. So it's kind of like the backyard way of doing that if you don't have the scientifical calibrated thing, you know, made in China garbage. If you don't have one of those. So yeah, that's where we are now. And I guess I'm going to be ordering some more stuff. So we'll catch you next time. Like, share, and subscribe and all that, and have a good one. Later.